Good morning, everybody. All right, we've got another math lesson for Wednesday. No, today is Thursday. Can't even keep track. And today we are doing some fractions. We're subtracting fractions on this page, and this should be complete review. We've done adding and subtracting of fractions all year long, right? So let's start with a quick one just as a review. Let's look at number 1D. And 1D has a mixed number, so a whole number and a fraction, subtracting a fraction. So I'm going to stack my fractions. I always stack my fractions to add and subtract. It's way easier. So I have 1, oops, I didn't write, and 5/6 minus 2/3. Okay, when I add and subtract fractions, the first thing I have to do is look at our denominator, and I have to say, are they the same? Do I have a common denominator? Do you have a common denominator? No. Can you get a common denominator? Yes. Okay, so two ways to get it. I can cross multiply, and I can multiply everything on top by thirds and everything on bottom by sixes. Or I know that 3 and 6 have something in common, and that's where I want to start today, is what they have in common. So if I were to count by threes, I go 3, 6, 9, I'm going to stop right there. And if I count by sixes, I go 6, 12, 18, and I'm going to stop right there. And what do those two numbers have in common when we skip count? Well, we can see they both have a 6, and we really didn't have to write that down. We could think of that on our own probably. And so our lowest common denominator is going to be 6, right? That's the smallest number they have in common. So to get sixths, my top number already has sixths, right? So I really don't have to do anything to it. I can multiply by 1/1, but really all I'm doing is just keeping it the same. Don't forget your whole number stays there, and then you still have 5/6, right? To get my bottom fraction, my 2/3 into 6, I have to multiply how many times? How many times do we have to multiply 3 to get to 6? 2, right? So I have to go 2/2. And I know that 3 times 2 equals 6, which gives me a common denominator now. And 2 times 2 equals 4. So now I can actually do my problem and subtract because I do have a common denominator, right? Okay, so what I'm looking at first is just the fractions, and that one's pretty easy. If I have 5/6 minus 4/6, how many 6 do I have left? 1, so I have 1/6, right? And 1 whole minus no whole on the bottom means I still have my 1 whole, okay? So that's what we're doing on this whole page. You can do the regular fractions. I think you're fine with that. Make sure that you've written out problem D. And then we're going to go ahead and look at some word problems because well, actually, we're going to do one other thing first. Let's look at problem H just for a second and remind ourselves what that's going to look like and make sure that we can subtract. Okay, so let's set up problem H really quickly. 15 and 5/8 minus 3 and 1/3. And my dog is fighting with the cat, so just a minute. Bumper! No. That's always good background noise. All right, so do I have a common denominator? No. Can I find a common denominator? Yes. I can figure out what 3 and 8 have in common, but in this case I know that it's probably going to be a pretty big one, so the easiest way to do this is to cross multiply. I'm going to do this one times thirds, so my 3's go up top, and I'm going to multiply down here times eighths, so my 8's go down to the bottom, right? Okay, so now I have to keep my whole numbers, right? Don't forget your whole numbers. They always come over, 15 and 3, okay? And then I need my fractions. So 8 times 3, what's our common denominator? Count by 8s. 8, 16, 24. So I know that both of these are going to have a common denominator of 24 because I have 3 times 8 and 8 times 3. Okay, now our numerator. 5 times 3 equals 15, good. And 8 times 1 equals 8. And now I can subtract again, right? So finish that up. I was thinking that this one would make you borrow from the whole number, but it doesn't, so that's super easy. You can finish that. Okay, let's look at word problems for a minute. All right, now let's take a guess. Since all of the other problems on the first page are subtraction, what do we think it's going to be asking us to do here on our word problems? Probably subtract, right? So looking at number 2, Sandy ate 1/6 of a candy bar. John ate 3/4 of it. How much more of the candy bar did John eat than Sandy? So who ate more, John or Sandy? Right, we know John ate more because it says how much more did John eat. So our bigger number is the number that John has. And when we subtract, we know that our bigger number always goes on top, right? Okay, so that's all I'm going to give you for that one. You know how to set up a subtraction problem. Number 3, 4.5 yards of cloth are needed to make a woman's dress. 2 2/7 yards of cloth are needed to make a girl's dress. How much more cloth is needed to make the woman's dress than the girl's dress? Well, which one requires more? The woman's, right? And we can see that the women have a whole 4 and the girls only have a 2, right? So the women's dress goes on top, and then you're going to do the same thing and you're going to subtract your fractions, right? Mixed numbers here. All right, the next part. Gotta love dogs. So he's blind, remember? So he has bells on his door to help him get in and outside, and he thinks he needs to go outside right now. Hold on. Okay, thank you. I paused it to let the dog outside. So number 4, Bill reads 1/5 of a book on Monday. He reads 2/3 of a book on Tuesday. If he finishes reading the book on Wednesday, what fraction of the book did he read on Wednesday? This one's a little trickier, so I'm going to help you with this one, okay? So we know that he read so let's do a tape diagram, okay? So we're going to draw our tape, and we know that he read 1/5 on Monday, and this isn't going to be exact fraction pieces, but we're going to represent this is Monday, okay? He read 2/3 on Tuesday. And we need to figure out, if he finishes reading the book on Wednesday, what fraction of the book did he read on Wednesday? What kind of problem is this? Is this more than one step? I would think so, right? Because what we need to know is, first of all, how much did he read on Monday and Tuesday together? And then we have to figure out how much was left from the whole on Wednesday for him to read. So instead of subtracting here, the first thing we've got to do is add Monday and Tuesday together to figure out how much he read then. So let's start there. We're going to add Monday and Tuesday. So 1/5 and 2/3. We're going to add those up. Okay, do they have a common denominator? Nope. Can we find one? Yep, what do they have in common? 5, 10, 15. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So when I count them out, I know that 15 is what we have in common, right? So to get there, I know that 5 was multiplied 3 times, and I know that 3 was multiplied 5 times. Okay, so we're really just taking our denominators and flipping them over. Okay, so now I have a common denominator of 15 on both, right? And numerators, I have 3 times 1 is 3, and 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, add those up. Remember, you're stopping the video at any point just to work. Okay, so I have 13 15ths when I add those together. So on Monday and Tuesday, Bill read 13 15ths of his book. Okay, but we want to know what is left. How much did he read on Wednesday to finish the book? Well, we just decided that our whole happens to be 15ths. Okay, so there are 15 pieces to make our whole. And he read 13 out of the 15 on Monday and Tuesday. Well, how many more do we need to make a whole? Remember, one whole equals how many total pieces in our denominator, so one whole is 15 15ths. And he read 13 15ths already. So how many were left for him to actually read on Wednesday? I can subtract that, right? I know that one whole was 15 15ths minus 13 15ths that he read. What's your answer? Good. So on Wednesday, he read 2/15 of the book, right? That's what's left over. Any questions? Call me, message me, okay? We'll try and set up a web chat for tomorrow also. All right, question number 5, I'm going to read it to you. Tank A has a capacity of 9.5 gallons. 6 1/3 gallons of the tank's water are poured out. How many gallons of water are left in the tank? Okay. So, tape diagram. I'm going to get you started. Okay. The whole tank is how many gallons? Capacity means how much it holds. So how many gallons does this tank hold? Tank A has a capacity of 9.5. There's a point there. Okay. Now, 6 1/3 gallons of the tank are poured out. So how many gallons of the tank are left in the tank? All right. This one's a little different. There's a couple different ways we could do it. Actually, in this case, strangely enough, it's probably easier to multiply and figure it out than to do the addition and subtraction. And you guys do know how to multiply, okay? So 6 1/3 gallons, we'll just draw a line somewhere. 6 1/3 gallons are poured out. So we need to know how much is left in the tank. Well, even though I said all these are subtraction, let's do it as a multiply because it's way easier. So we have 6 1/3 gallons of 9.5. Okay. Well, how do I write 9.5 as a fraction? What is 0.5? That's like 9.5, right? So that means 6 1/3. Oops, that's a 3, not a 2. Okay. And of means times, right? Of 9 1/2. Now, can I multiply mixed numbers? Remember yesterday's lesson? I need to go mad. Okay, so I'm going to go 6 times 3. There's my M. Multiply. 6 times 3. 6, 12, 18. Add. So I'm going to add my 1. So now I have 19 thirds over here. And I'm going to do the same thing here. 9 times 2 is 18. Add my 1. Oh, how interesting. So I have 19 halves here. Okay. So here's what I want you to work on, and then we'll talk about this more tomorrow. After I do that, so there's nothing that I can cross cancel, unfortunately, on this one. 3 doesn't go into 19 and 2 doesn't go into 19. So I've got to multiply those across. It's going to give me how much of the 9/5 or 9.5 gallons, okay, were in the tank. And then I have to figure out how much was left, okay? So see if you can figure that out. It's going to give you what's in it, how to figure out after that what's left out of the total 9.5. Okay, how much is left is what kind of problem? Usually subtraction, right? Okay, so I'm going to let you play with that one for a little bit, and then we'll talk tomorrow. All right, you guys have a good day, and enjoy the sunshine before the clouds roll in and the snow rolls in. Okay, talk to you later.